Hi, this is Sajjad, welcoming you to this video of Nuke Learning. 2D, 3D toggle and camera controls. The 2D, 3D drop-down menu lets you toggle between 2D and 3D display modes in the current viewer. Hitting the V hotkey also does the switching from 2D to 3D and 3D to 2D. One of the cool settings of Nuke 13.2 version 5 is the placement of Translate, Rotate, and Scale tools here on the right of the panel. This menu also lets you choose between different orthographic or non-perspective views when working in the 3D mode. The camera drop-down menu lets you choose which camera to look through when multiple cameras exist in your 3D scene. The other options are related to 3D only, and I have addressed them in other videos. Viewer Selector Mode. As you can see here, we have 3 options, and each of them changes how you can select areas in Viewer panel. You can use this tool to select the area you want in 3D world. For instance, using Rectangle Selector helps me select like this. Ellipse Selector helps like this. And the Lasso Selector tool, just like Photoshop, helps select freely. Down here, we have RGB color space values. This shows negative and positive values when you hover your mouse over a pixel and selected area of pixels using Control and Shift. These numbers are super useful for color matching, and I have shown you a great technique for matching the colors of the 2 plates in other videos. If you are like me and you want this selection area to disappear after doing your job, you can Control right-click to deactivate it. Then we have HSVL. The default setting shows color space values as hue, saturation, value, and level. There are other options if you want, you can choose from here, like Spot Meter, which is color space values measured in f-stops at 1/48th of a second shutter speed, and 8-bit option, which is RGB color space values. 8-bit hex option is the same color space value as 8-bit, but displayed in hexadecimal, and the log is logarithmic color space values. The tools at the bottom of the viewer allow you to adjust the playback settings, including setting the frame range, selecting the playback mode, and locking the viewer playback range. Drag the orange marker along the timeline to quickly cue to a specific frame. The number of the current frame appears below the center of the timeline. You can also cue to a frame by typing its number directly into this field. By default, Nuke automatically adjusts the timeline of every viewer window to show the frame range defined in your project settings. If no frame range is defined, the frame range of the first image you read in is used as the global frame range. Viewer timeline controls also have a frame range source drop-down menu that you can use to define where the timeline gets its frame range from. You can set this menu to global, input, or custom. The playback rate field, or frames per second, displays the project's playback speed. Nuke attempts to maintain this speed throughout playback, although this adjusts depending on the resolution of the imagery and your hardware configuration. The asterisk denotes the playback speed selected using the project settings, root, FPS control. To have the viewer adjust the timeline to show the in and out frames of the current input clip, select Input. From the Frame Range Source drop-down menu, the number of the first frame in the clip is shown in the left end of the timeline and the number of the last frame in the right end. Alt-drag to pan, and middle mouse. Button drag to zoom in. You can also zoom in or out of the timeline using the mouse wheel. To reset the zoom, press the middle mouse button over the timeline. Functions of the playback buttons: play backward and play forward, back one frame and forward one frame, previous keyframe and next keyframe, the first frame and last frame. The frame increment field allows you to specify the number of frames by which the previous increment or next increment buttons cue the sequence. This is set to 10 frames by default. The playback mode repeatedly plays the sequence in a loop, repeatedly plays the image back and forth from head to tail, plays once through the section between in and out point, and stops at the out point. If these are not marked, then it plays from the beginning to the end of the sequence. Plays once from the beginning to the end of the sequence, ignoring any in and out points. Jumping to a specific frame. You can move quickly to a specific frame on the timeline by choosing Viewer, go to Frame. Or by pressing Alt-G, entering a frame number in the dialog that appears and clicking OK. Synchronizing Viewer Playback. The Lock All Viewer Playback Ranges button allows you to toggle synchronized playback of viewer windows. By default, all viewers are locked. That is, if you cue to a frame in one viewer, all other viewers follow suit. When the lock icon changes from a closed lock to an open lock, that viewer's playback becomes independent of other viewers and not cued to the other viewers.